The Rings of Power trailer has finally premiered, and I've never seen, well, the newest trailer I should say, I have never seen anything that features less of the source material that it's supposedly based on. This is not Tolkien, and I want to explain why. This is not Tolkien's work, and we really need to talk about it. But first, a word from my sponsor. This video is sponsored by Mountaineer brand. All natural products for everything that you will ever need, from deodorants to beard oils to shaving products to skincare and more. Discount code, as you can see, don't forget to try them. Absolutely fantastic, great company. I use their stuff daily. As someone who is basically allergic to everything, their products have been a godsend. So, like I said, discount and all the info you need below. So, I'm going to clarify this, what I mean by not Tolkien's story. So, Galadriel, the iconic embodiment of feminism, one of the strongest female characters to exist in terms of fantasy, has been completely rewritten. They've taken a phrase which refers to her strength, she is an Amazon, and turned it into a literal statement and turned it into a warrior, which she never was. There is nothing within Tolkien's work. Her backstory they've concocted for this, which is a rewrite, is more like Elrond's backstory and borrows very big elements from that, which I find interesting. It's also not his story in terms of structure. They've fundamentally just created an original show set at the end of the Second Age, where really this took place at the start. Well, the whole story of the Second Age is about 1600 to 1800 years, but they're compressing it. Now, I'm going to say this. The comment I see a lot is, well, Tolkien never wrote these books, therefore they have to do it. He never wrote another story like The Lord of the Rings. He didn't, you are correct. But this is where your logic and that comment falls through. The complete Second Age is recorded between predominantly, I should say, in the Silmarillion and the Unfinished Tales. There's also elements of it in the Lost Tales and a few other writings. Amazon do not have the rights to this. They have the rights to the appendices, or the appendices, I have problems saying that word and I apologise, in the back of The Lord of the Rings. They don't actually have rights to anything else, which is why they've invented a lot of original characters to fill those gaps where they don't have them. In my mind, you could tell this story. Pick the immortal characters or the characters that are going to be a main focus, use them to go through and have them travelling through this age. Make it episodic, but combine each episode, so the characters who are long-lived and elderly or ancient carry on, and you move through it. They're condensing the storyline to the point there are characters alive at the same time that would never have met. Though hundreds of years, thousands of years separate them. All the promotion is focusing on new characters. There's very little of Tolkien's work, if any, barring names and setting within this. They've already added words to Tolkien's language. They've already rewritten so much. This does not represent Tolkien's Second Age. My opinion is they wanted to recreate the magic of the Fellowship, Two Towers and Return of the King. They wanted to recreate the Peter Jackson magic. They can't do that with this because of the nature of it. Maybe they should have chose a different story, or I've said this in previous videos, that there is a lot of great, air quotes, diverse fantasy out there. Black Leopard, Red Wolf would be beautiful on screen. The Kishi would be beautiful on screen. You could do it. Or, if you did want a POC Lord of the Rings, there is a whole First Age that isn't as recorded, but also there is some descriptives there that they could work with. The Second Age was the age of elves predominantly. Men did not do much during the Second Age in the same sense as, say, the Third Age. It was almost a Dark Age. The problem here is they are replicating Peter Jackson's, but they aren't creating anything new. They're taking a source material and twisting it. This in-name adaptation theme is something I find absolutely ridiculous, and I do find, like I've said before as well, if you find the source material problematic, maybe go for different source material. It's not hard, is it? They wanted to cash in on Game of Thrones. They wanted to cash in on that type of fantasy, which is more action heavy, more political, and more socio-political fantasy. Lord of the Rings is more subtle. It's a history book, effectively, and it tells the story. All of these books tell a story through the ages, all interlinked, some separate, some apart, but there's an interlinking thread that ties them all together. And that's what they don't understand with this. I also think the fact that they weren't banking on Tolkien fans. We are very protective over Tolkien's work. We are very, very, very protective over Tolkien's work. There are scholars that have spent the best part of their lives studying this. And the difference being is that this is the backbone of modern fantasy. I see BookTube, for example, screaming about the latest YA fantasy novel, which is Avatar: The Last Airbender fanfiction reskinned and renamed. That horrible, atrocious book that you're saying is the best fantasy novel ever would not exist without Tolkien. And Robert E. Howard as well, but that's a whole different video, and I've done a video on him. Do check that video out. When it comes to adaptation, I think people are sick of seeing things they love destroyed for the sake of modernity. And yes, modernity can be a negative, but also, and I will say this to the Americans listening to this, Tolkien wrote The Lord of the Rings as a history, a mythology, that's inspired by Anglo-Saxon Britain. It pulls in elements of Norse mythology, the great epics such as the Odyssey and the Iliad as well. It pulls in sources from Catholicism and Christianity. It pulls in sources from, like I said, Norse and Scottish and Welsh mythology to create kind of the myths and legends of an Anglo-Saxon Britain that we don't have. That's the whole thing. Read his letters, by the way. Just read them. And that's what people also forget. People have come into this who don't care about the source material. People have just absolutely obliterated Tolkien to the point that they don't care about it. This is just a cash cow. And it's sad. But this is not Tolkien's work. This is not his story, his characters on screen. This is a bastardization of it that is not representative of anything.